Hello and welcome to Two Cats Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Catrina Taylor, and your co-host, or my co-host.
I'm MJBC.
And I think that's the perfect introduction for our topic today.
I don't know what you mean, Catrina. What could you possibly mean by that?
If you guys haven't noticed between our shorts and our podcast already, the two of us are definitely neurospicy. We have that ADHD thing going on for sure. We have...
Yeah, I have diagnosed ADHD. It's really bad.
Me too. And autism tendencies and
autism.
neurospiciness.
Yeah, I'm quite certain that I am ADHD. I haven't been evaluated formally for autism, but the only reason is that I am not actually seeking treatment for autism, so I haven't felt like it was going to necessarily, at my stage in life, be particularly useful to me necessarily to have the diagnosis. But I have reason to believe that it is there. But I do have diagnosed ADHD. That was a wild process.
Right.
And I do have treatment for ADHD. I am only able to do this now for a living because I have treatment for ADHD, because I am medicated for ADHD, and that has changed my life in a lot of ways. But
and I can testify to the same, exactly the same reasoning for why I haven't gone and done the autism verification. However, I've done a few of the online assessments, and I have a lot of good reasons to think I fit.
My entire life, like every I just look back at things and I say, oh, that makes sense now.
Right?
That really weird thing about me that I never understood now suddenly makes sense. So yeah. And I mean, it was the same way with ADHD, but was like blowing wide open my whole life and history. Like, I have lived an ADHD life. I've changed careers multiple times. My entire history is made out of ADHD. What did I do?
You went gung-ho every single time.
Oh my God, all in. And most of the time, like succeeded until I decided to leave the whatever the thing was. So like, I've done well in all my ADHD careers until I didn't want them anymore. And one of the great things about one of the reasons why I wanted to seek treatment for ADHD is I didn't want being an author to become another one of those things. I didn't want it to be another thing where I wrote one book, sold one book, and then lost all interest in being an author and went off to do something else. So being on medication, besides, other improvements in my life and, improving my focus in general, helps me to power through the difficult parts about being an author that are the things that would typically be the precursor to me losing interest in it and moving on to something else. So it's helping me through the hard parts. And with that in mind, we're here to talk about deadlines, friends.
And managing it with our neurospiciness. And we have both had we have different kinds of deadlines as authors that will absolutely overlap in both types of publishing. And one of those is the self-imposed deadlines. And we all have them. I think just by being authors, we get it in our head. We want to get this story done by next spring, or we want it done by the end of the month. Or if you're truly ambitious or a little bit ADHD and determined and block out the rest of the world, you might want to try to get your 40,000 word book done by the end of the week, which has happened at least once in my life. Actually, maybe it was 60,000. It was 20, 40, 60.
Yeah.
It might have been like a week and a half.
Yeah.
But it was 3 different novellas is what it turned into be.
Yeah.
And it can be done. Do I recommend it?
No. I also do not. It's kind of funny. You know what's funny, Catrina, is that so many months ago when we originally settled on this as a topic for the podcast, and we were going to record it. And if you guys don't believe we have ADHD, you should know that it was many months ago that we decided to record this episode, and now we are finally recording it.
Right.
But I wrote down notes for myself, and the first note I wrote down on ADHD and deadlines was deadlines. I need them. And that is absolutely true. Like, if I don't have deadlines, it is hard for me to get into that ADHD, gotta get it done, the deadline is coming up mindset, that like emergency hyperfocus mindset that sometimes we rely on. I need deadlines, but I will say that the deadline that I just got off of, which was, do you want me to talk about it now at all?
Yeah, this is fun. You're just getting off of a big external deadline. And yes, I do want you to talk about it. And I am in the middle of an internal deadline that's slightly motivated by external, because I have a lot of other projects and I'd have no idea what it means not to put 100 fires in the iron, or 100 irons in the fire. I am totally living this episode. Go on. Tell us about your fun external deadline.
So yeah, I just had a deadline, and like I need deadlines. And actually my issue with this deadline was that I should have asked for a deadline, for an earlier deadline. I should have asked my editor for another deadline. So here's the thing. And hopefully by the time this podcast actually airs, and in fact we might have to wait to air this particular one for this to be true. That the book in question will be like publicly known to be in the works. So hopefully by the time this goes up, that will be the case. But anyway, it is public knowledge that regardless of when this is, it is public knowledge that I originally got a 2-book deal with I Was a Teenage Death God. It may be less public knowledge that the second book is that it was part of a duology, that the second book is meant to be the second half of that story. In my contract, like, it had dates for when the contract states a bunch of dates, and then there's a schedule that also I get from my editor for each book. But there was a deadline scheduled for when the original draft of the manuscript for the second book had to be delivered to my editor. And there was another thing that had to happen before that, which was I needed to write up a formal proposal. Like we had when we signed the deal in the first place, like I had to give my editor basically kind of a summary of what I thought the second book was going to be in order for them to even acquire the book. But in order to get the go-ahead to go ahead and write the whole book, I also needed to do a proposal, which was going to be, it would be the first few chapters of the book, first 50 pages of the book, I think is what they wanted. And it was either 30 or 50. Anyway, it ended up being 2 chapters for the way my book was. And then an outline with all the rest of the chapters there, with every other chapter. Now, I talked about this in a short that you will have probably seen prior to this, folks who are here. I'm a pantser. Like, I typically do not outline a book before writing it. I just start writing a book, and wherever it goes, like, I discover it. I'm a discovery writer. And wherever it goes, that is where the book goes. This does not fly in a situation like this. If you're selling a book on proposal, it does not fly. Like, for obvious reasons, understandable reasons, before an editor acquires something, before a publisher buys a book in advance, they need to know what it is. Like, that is totally fair. They need to know really what the book is, how it goes, if it's something they actually are going to like and want to work on and think they can sell. So, like, my editor needs to know what's going to happen in this book, what the sequence of events are, how it's going to end. Like, my editor needs to know those things, and it is very understandable. So where I think I messed up was I needed to add, there wasn't a deadline for the proposal in my contract or in the schedule. That was left to me to just like do at some point but there was this hard like deadline for the manuscript getting turned in. So I think I should have asked my editor for a deadline for the proposal, because what happened was I'm a pantser, I'm bad at writing outlines, blah, blah, blah. So I procrastinated on it because it was hard. I procrastinated on it because I have ADHD. That is what we do.
We're good at it.
When we don't want to do it, we don't do it. We have a really hard time. It is difficult to occasionally to the point of impossible to do a thing that we are not interested in doing. And I was not interested in writing that outline because I am bad at outlines and it's hard. And I think that the truth is I needed an external deadline set for me that I would feel utter humiliation about not actually making, because my internal deadlines were not working. My internal, like, I want to have it done by this and this, that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough to push past the reluctance to do the thing. And I needed to have that external deadline where if I didn't make the deadline, like, I was gonna, lose face or like mess up my very first publishing contract. Because what happened was I did not get that proposal in until, I want to say it was August or something. And late August, maybe even September 1st, might have even been early September. I kept saying, no, I gotta write the short story for the podcast first. And then I was like, what are you doing, MJ? What do you even think you are doing? Not prioritizing your publishing contract. Like, you need to do this. And so I switched gears and I was like, I'm gonna get this done by this time. So it was quite late. So I believe that I got the go ahead to start writing the full draft. And keep in mind, I only had 2 chapters written that I could send with the proposal, right? I only had the 2 chapters. I had to write the whole rest of the book by the end of the year. And, there are people who are fast writers who, for like, that's just nothing to them. Like, oh, whatever, like 3-4 months to write a book, no problem. I have written stuff that fast, but in general, I am not that fast. Like, when I have written that fast, it's been because I was so into the thing. Like, I wrote most of I Was Teenage Death God originally, like, in a 3-month period. Like, I wrote the first 2 chapters and like maybe a part of another chapter after that, and like procrastinated for months and months and months, and then like finished writing it all like really fast, like at the end of 2019. But that is not the norm. That is not the norm. It takes me a freaking long time to write a book. What was I thinking that this was giving me enough time? Now, before you start worrying, I did make the deadline, but it was so much pain. I spent the last 2 weeks of December, like, so all through Christmas and all through New Year's, writing like basically all the time. Like I took I took almost no time off for the holidays. My spouse, like basically I just disappeared. I didn't exist as a person for like 2 weeks because all I was doing was writing my book. And I finally emailed the draft to my editor at 2 a.m. Before it was due that day. Like
That
they were
is
coming
awesome.
back to their desk that day.
That is so ADHD.
It was so ADHD. And also, like I think that it is fine. My editor is great and sent me an amazing email the next day about it. Obviously hasn't read it yet. So like I still could get it. It could be when I get my edit letter, it's like, this is garbage and you need to start from scratch, or even like, we cannot publish, like this is not we're not gonna be able to do this. Like it could be bad, but I think more likely it's gonna be, we're gonna have a lot of work to do, but it's doable. Because I would say I did not have the time that I really wanted to like go back. Like by the time there were things, because I am still a pantser, because I am still a discovery writer, there were things that I like brought into the book during those last 2 weeks, like that I discovered like 2 days before I had to turn it in. Like, oh my God, I got this great idea. I'm going to write this in. And I did, but it would be better if I had then like still a month to revise that and like really work it into the plot, like really work it, like really go back. Like I would not say that the draft I turned in was the thing I would want, because I wrote like, I started writing it, I started working on it pretty hard after like September when I got the go ahead, but like I did not get as far as I should have, and by the time it came to those last 2 weeks, I still had like 40,000 words to write to like get to a word count that could be considered even remotely like okay for YA, like so it's underwritten, like, so I've turned to this manuscript, but it is probably gonna go up in word count instead of down, which is the opposite of the way my books usually go. Usually I'm like, oh, hi, my draft is 90,000 words. I can't sell that in YA. I have to cut out 10,000 words, usually it's that. And now I'm more like, oh, wow, this is probably short, like 10,000, 15,000 words, like that. And we're going to be adding those later in developmental edits, and it's going to be like a heavy edit. Like I don't think it's bad. Like I read it and I love a lot of it, but a lot of I'm like, this is not the clean kind of. This is not as good as I would have liked it to be on my very first contract. And I've sent a bunch of notes to my editor with it when I sent it in, like of the things I thought were, problems I saw that we probably would want to be solving along the way. And then also like, this is my first time writing a first draft under contract, and I learned a lot about managing my time. And they were so nice about it. Yeah, they were so nice about it. They were like, yes, writing under contract is such a different beast. And, like they are so kind. And I feel like the editing process is going to be great. And I think they're brilliant. And I'm really excited to hear everything that's wrong with my book and what we have to fix, because I think it'll end up being a great book. Like I'm excited for working on this book with them. But man, awesome. That sucked. Don't do that, you guys.
Yeah, seriously, don't. But it is very ADHD, and it is very much a know yourself thing. You knew you should have had a deadline for turning something in sooner, so that you can get to the next step sooner.
Yep.
In my case, I know when I'm dealing with the deadlines, and bear in mind that my motivation is very different because of the choice of business that I'm in. I get paid differently. I'm not on somebody else's schedule. If I don't release a book, money doesn't come in. If I don't release the next story, we go broke. And for some reason, I like eating. So do my cats and everyone under my household. And so they like it when I release a book and make a couple of dollars and can, pay for food and stuff. And
wow.
so,
That is wild, Catrina.
Right? So this is where it gets complicated for me. When the ADHD, I'm going to call it a flare up. It's not a flare up. It's just that I let it take over for whatever reason. Life gets distracting or stressful. Yeah. Circumstances, situations beyond my control start to interfere and the ADHD gets intrusive. This is actually where Twitch initially started for me. I already get up at crazy in the morning anyway. And I write. And I sit there for 2 or 3 hours normally and write. And that was my schedule for years. And then I saw people on Twitch doing it. And I was like, well, why am I not just doing that? Because the accountability means I will actually be writing. And so that became my deadline mitigator. That became my accountability partner. Everybody I talked to on Twitch. And so now I started, like, around the same time I started streaming, I started doing this other challenge that I'm doing in January. Because usually by the end of the year, everything I plan has gone off the rails. And last year was no exception. We both know, like, my last 2 months were insane.
That's so real.
Right? So I start every year with a short story a day challenge. And it is literally write a short story every single day for the month of January. Without fail. Are they good short stories?
I am shaking my head so hard right now, like, oh, no, not me. Never, never. I'm so impressed. Continue.
I started doing this actually in July of 2019, and I started off doing it twice a year. I just didn't think I was a very good short story writer. I'm probably still not one of the best, but this forced me to improve.
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
So I did it in July and I did it in January. And then I did it in July and January for another couple of years. Then we did it in September and January. And I've given you a preview of some of the big things that I've got going on besides this year. And I will share more of that, I'm sure, over the course of our podcast. But with all of that in mind, I wanted to make sure I was at least getting January in. We're going to start the year off right. We're going to start the year writing every single day, but not just writing, but proving to myself I can get to the end. Because as silly as it sounds, I need that reminder that I can end a story, that I can complete it, so that A, the imposter syndrome doesn't take over, and B, I don't let myself get distracted. Then I complicate it. And I also have a novella I'm writing at the same time. So
that's just, I can't even. I mean, I think that is, maybe we all need that. I don't know. Maybe it's just, I think with ADHD comes a lot of imposter syndrome because we spend a lot of time doubting our ability to finish things, doubting our ability to follow through. And because there have been times when we did not and like couldn't, or but I think that I haven't written as many books as you, obviously, or even close. But I still constantly need that reminder that yes, I can finish a book. Like, even as horrible as that deadline experience was that I just had, that I'm hoping next time around I will do better. I will manage my time better from the beginning and not get myself into that situation. Because ADHDers.
This is why we've dragged you into the writing community.
Yeah. I tell you, the eternal pain is you cannot write a whole book in the last half hour before it's due. Unlike everything we did in school.
Don't do that, guys.
Unlike everything we did in school and all the stuff that we have done at work over the years. We actually can't just write the whole thing before it's due, the half hour before it's due with a whole book. It doesn't work. It's too big.
Do you remember in high school when you thought 500-word essays, 1,000-word essays were so hard?
I would say I didn't think they were hard, but that was because I wrote them the half hour before they were due when I was in like major hyperfocus. Like I was in, and so I'm like, yeah, concentration is my superpower. I'm so great. Ha ha ha. I can write this whole thing right now and I'm going to get an A. And I did, but that doesn't translate to whole book. That does not. Mm-mm.
I remember sitting in a classroom with people like, you'd hear this minute the teacher says, oh, you've got 1,000 words to write or 500 words to write, which, by the way, translates into 1 page, 2 pages, in case anybody wants page numbers. And I would listen to the whole room groan. And I kept very quietly not really trying to respond, because in my head, like you, it really wasn't hard. It really wasn't.
Deal, man.
And I hear everybody else complain, I don't want to do it. It's just so much. It's like, no, really. If you were paying attention in class, whatever it was you were supposed to write about has probably already been discussed. And you don't have to draw from everything, and you don't have to invent anything. Just put it on paper.
I mean, also, like, you guys have been listening to this podcast. I can say 1,000 words in like 15 minutes, like no problem.
Exactly. And you can dictate your article. By the way, if anybody who's still in school wants a quick shortcut, use voice typing, dictate your article, and edit it. 15 minutes, you can have the whole thing written. You just need to structure it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Whole book is different because there are so many moving parts, and it's such a sustained project, which is difficult with ADHD to begin with, like like something, maintaining something that long. And I think you're right. And you know what you said before, and then I just kind of went on with something else, but like you said, that's why we dragged you into the write community, or into the writing community. Yes. And whereas, like I certainly wrote my first 2 books before I ever joined Twitch. The process with this and how difficult this for me, I think the accountability of streaming my way through a lot of it actually really helped, like doing the writing sprints. This is maybe a good time to say, hey, authors who are listening to this podcast, Catrina and I both do writing sprints on Twitch from time to time. Like we don't necessarily, that's not all we do, but we both do that sometimes. And if you want to come over and like, everybody is welcome to join in. And I have absolutely found that kind of accountability is really helpful, especially if you're an early morning person. Because like I have a critique partner that we used to do writing sprints together sometimes, but they are on the other side of the country and not a morning person. So our schedules are so not compatible for stuff like that, for like doing things like writing sprints. We are not writing at the same time. But finding an early morning crowd is amazing.
Exactly.
An international crowd. Like it's night for half those people.
I have been doing this now. I am in year 6 of live streaming on Twitch and writing on Twitch. And the people that I have met, those who don't stream but do write, absolutely love being able to get up and chat about the writing and chat about the productivity. And by the way, I want to do this with my newsletter, or I want to do that with my query. And they like having a place where people can talk about it.
Yeah.
And we talk about the good experiences, we talk about the bad experiences, and we write. And we share with each other what we're celebrating. It might be that we have gotten 200 words in the last 3 hours because, wow, did that story not want to move?
Yep. Actually, 200 words in 3 hours is not that bad for me. I'm sorry to say. It's kind of bad, but it's not that bad.
No, when I have a story that I really am into, that's a really bad number for me. But if I'm sitting here like, okay, I have to finish this because this is the next step and the thing I need to get to the last thing that I want to do, then yeah, it might be 200 words for the whole day. And this being someone who's going to be writing on and off all day long, and I'm going to bed and really grumpy. I only got 200 words in. But don't do that to yourself, because you deserve better. You got 200 more. If that happens to you, you got 200 more words than where you started.
Take those 200 words. That 200 words is so worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all have our days when it's just not coming. And especially like I'm talking to our ADHD brethren out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are just going to be days when it is so hard to get into it, so hard to get into the
Mm-hmm.
story, so hard to get into what you're writing. That is one of the difficulties. Like Katrina was just saying, like when she's really into a story, it's just like flying on the page, you know? I think, again, like one of the things that was a challenge for me with this book and this deadline that I had was because I'd had to outline the whole thing. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
my medication absolutely helps me with this. It helps me push through with this. But when I outline a book, my ADHD says, oh, that's done now. That
Mm-hmm.
book's done. You wrote that. We're not interested in that anymore
Mm-hmm.
because that's done. So getting your brain, it was really a challenge to keep myself engaged in that story. And that's going to continue to be a challenge. Even with medication, it's still a challenge. The meds help so much. Like I cannot,
Mm-hmm. They really do.
oh my God, do they help?
And
But they
no,
don't
not
fix they
everybody.
don't just like cure your ADHD. They just make it
Right.
easier to push through the things that are going to
Mm-hmm.
always be difficult. To like,
And
yeah.
not everybody needs medicine, but for those of us who do,
Yeah,
it's like
no.
night and day.
Right.
It
No,
really
it's
is.
life changing. Being able to
I
do that thing that you didn't want to do,
Yep.
even if it's still like really hard to do, that's better than
Mm-hmm.
impossible to do, which is how it was sometimes before. And that's
Exactly.
what, you know, leads to like quitting a project and like not finishing it. So, um,
And it's so much easier to keep all the things. Okay, I'll give you guys a great example, at least for me. At the my last 2 months of last year, what really threw me off the rails was the decision. First of all, in case we're discussing ADHD, my sister, by the way, also has it. One of my
mm,
sisters. I have a big family.
it's genetic.
But my sister says, she says, you know, you could just move in. And a breath later, I said, you know what? It's not a bad idea. Let's do that. And then it took us 2 months to move. And in those
'Cause, yeah.
two months, I had no room in my ADHD, autism, brain, whatever, to add other stuff to my plate. And I kept trying to because I had so many people that I absolutely adore. I wanted to help. And I had to remind myself. And then I didn't remind myself effectively. And,
Mm.
you know, which just made what was already a challenge harder. Add to that, the pharmacy had some massive communication issues, and I didn't have my medicine for
Oh
most
my
of it.
God.
So I
That's a
was,
nightmare. That's an actual nightmare.
it is, it, and in a way that I didn't understand it would be,
Mm-hmm.
because I went most of my life without help.
Right. No,
I went
same.
most of my life managing it, and then all of a sudden I've had it, and when it's not there, and I'm going through that kind of stress, it just turned into a lot of really ugly stuff, like in the brain.
Mm.
Because so I'm confident because I get this with other things where I will get to the point where I don't necessarily need the medicine to get through the hard stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not where I'm at now. And that's as okay as it
Yeah.
was when I didn't need it. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to recognize that. And I wish I had known sooner for so many reasons, but I don't know anybody who has found out as a grown person that they had ADHD that didn't say, I wish I had known sooner.
Yeah, right. No, we all wish we'd known sooner. Because we think back at all the things that were so hard and they could
Mm-hmm.
have been less hard. Like they
Mm-hmm.
really could have been less hard. Um, I think like where the ADHD comes in for me is it's like I have that delicate line between like needing absolutely requiring structure and absolutely hating structure at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like the autism wants structure, the ADHD hates structure.
Mm-hmm.
Um and but so like finding that perfect balance of like this is the right amount of structure that puts me at my like maximum productivity capacity. Because if I don't set aside times that I dedicate to writing, then I feel guilty all the time that I'm not doing it, especially if I'm on a deadline. Like if I don't say, okay, well, I'm going to do it for this amount of time, and then during this other amount of time, I'm going to do different things, then the entire time, anytime I'm not doing it, I feel absolutely guilty, and it leads to burnout. And it's bad. So like for me, I do have to have like some kind of a schedule, even if it's very vague, even if it's just like saying, okay, I'm gonna like for these hours, I'm gonna work on this, and then I have dinner, and then after that, the time after that is like for my spouse and for like playing games together and like doing stuff like I do other things there or whatever is going to happen then. Because otherwise I can't enjoy any of those things because I'm like, I should be writing, I should be writing, I should be writing all the time. Oh my God, I have a deadline. Oh my God. So finding that way, finding that like whatever it is for you, and it's going to be different for everyone. Finding that way to make yourself a schedule that sets you free to enjoy your life and do the stuff you want to do, I think is maybe sometimes the biggest challenge. And then we all fail at it sometimes. Like I consider the place I got myself into with this deadline as like I failed at time. I failed. So I was not comfortable and I was not happy and I did not have a life and it was bad. And hopefully I can stop that from happening again. But if that happens to you, you guys, like, it's also you didn't. We can come back from failure. There's another chance.
I don't know about you guys, but I knew I grew up with it stuck in my head that if I wasn't perfect, I wasn't good enough. If I didn't do this exactly right the first time. Did you know that most people don't actually know what right is the first time? That's just not how we work. And it's not you can tell me how to do it right and poof, I just know. Kids, that's not how anybody works. So it's okay if we don't hit the mark the first attempts we make. And it's okay if we don't finish that book by that exact deadline every single time. And it's okay if you listen to the sound of the deadline as it goes wishing past your head. I've done that a few times.
Okay, even in it's slightly less okay in traditional publishing, except that like every author that I know who's further along in their career, every traditionally published author who I know who's further along in their career than I am has had like deadline extensions. Like they've they've requested an extension. There's usually time built in for that, like the publisher has time for that to work. I didn't want to do that for this because I wanted to build trust with my publisher. I wanted to be a person who was always either ahead of schedule or on schedule so that when that time comes that I need to ask for an extension, that it would be like, oh yes, of course. Like MJ is always so reliable. Like, of course we can give them an extension this time. Like that is no big deal. Instead of like, oh, not again. I don't know if we want to buy another book by MJ because we always have to go through this and it's always late. Like I wanted to start out with fulfilling my obligations to the letter, like my contractual obligations to the letter, so that later on if I have to ask for some leniency here or there, like nobody would resent it. And that was my plan. But
you delivered.
I did. We'll see. We'll see how, right. We'll see like how, like this is my first time, submitting like a first draft of something like, you know, even when I was querying, I would think like I had been through like huge processes with like beta readers and critique partners and stuff before a thing like went out to agents, you know what I mean? And then before we put my book on sub, like my agent and I like revised it together, you know, like there was a process and like, so it feels very vulnerable having this very, very, very first drafty thing go
Mm-hmm.
to my editor at my publisher. And I don't really have any, because this is my first time doing this, I don't have any experience about what happens, like if, like what, I don't even know, honestly, if I fulfilled expectations with this draft. Like, I won't know
Right.
until I get my edit letter. I
Well,
think some
that's
of it's
true.
really good, and then I think some of it's a little bare bones, and I do think that there are
Mm-hmm.
problems and it has some stuff missing that some of it I have an idea of, but I also hope my editor's going to have like some amazing ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Or even just say, this isn't working, and that's going to be the catalyst I need to come up with an amazing idea. You know, like that
Mm-hmm.
often happens too. But yeah, so like, but forgive yourselves, you guys. Like, cut yourself some slack.
Mm-hmm.
And our ADHD brethren out there, like, you can do that. Like, I know so many authors who have ADHD. It is so common for people with ADHD to go into
Mm-hmm.
creative fields like this.
Well, it fits our neurospiciness. It gives us the room to do all the things that are going to keep us engaged. Part of the
Yeah.
reason why I can say I've got as many books I've got out is because I test them on different genres, different pen names. I create different
Mm-hmm.
opportunities for reach, and therefore I can't get bored. My brain doesn't get bored, and if I start to get bored, as one of my shorts said, then I blow something up. And you
Always
guys can go
works.
back and it does every time. There are consequences in every story. If something explodes, the house catches fire, the ship
Mm-hmm.
blows out, whatever is going on, something
Yeah.
drastic. It's beautiful.
It always is fun to torture our characters when we
It is.
need a little excitement.
But also remember, if you get yourself into habits and structure and practice, you don't always need the explosions and you don't always need the medicines. You need the things that work best for you.
Yeah.
And that's what MJ and I have found for ourselves. That's keeping us going doing this is we found the rhythm that works for us. And it's a process, but it's a good process. And it's a learning curve. And I don't listen to the deadlines disappear past my head as often as I used to because I learned how to fix that. And I don't go through a lot of the deadlines being challenging in other ways for me as hard as I did before. But what worked for me was getting up every morning and live streaming with all of the wonderful people on Twitch and writing for 2 to 3 hours a day and committing myself to active writing. And for me, that's different than committing myself to active business because marketing, editing, book covers, all the things that come with it, that's a different monster and it is not the same thing as writing.
So true. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I had something to say in there and now it's gone. And it's probably just what Catrina said. 100% what Catrina said. It does get easier. You find ways to manage it. And it's worth it. So like, oh, I know what I wanted to say too. Like, come over and join us on Twitch. Like,
Please.
and not just like to visit our streams. Come stream, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
More authors on Twitch.
Yes,
Come
please.
over and join the writing community on Twitch. We want you there. We're excited to meet you there.
And whether you stream or not, stop into one of our streams. Sometimes we overlap and stream together, and sometimes we stream separately. But stop in and say hi. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to know what you're working on. It's totally worth it, and it's a lot of fun. But if you stream, let us know because we'll totally make sure we're in your chat.
And speaking of deadlines, I think we're counting down like the last minute of how long we said we were going to record this podcast for. So here we are. Deadline.
All right. So what are your final thoughts, MJ? On all this wonderfulness.
My final thoughts are deadlines, you probably need them. And you're probably going to hate them and love them if you have ADHD. And if you need a process that works for you, talk to other people with ADHD too. Maybe they can help you come up with a way to deal with your deadlines.
Absolutely. And if you need accountability, remember there are tools out there. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding what works for you. And I guess those are kind of my final thoughts, is find the process that works best for you. And no matter what anybody says, if it's getting you from opening paragraph to the end, that's what counts. It doesn't matter your methodology. Just get it done. And you're fine. And it'll be fine. And it'll be beautiful. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for this podcast and meandering through the ADHD and goofiness and silliness that we've happily shared.
We'll see you next time.